Throughout the Biden administration, we have, I hope, had reason to have a little bit of higher expectations for how kids would be treated at the border. I mean, after all, opposition to the intentional, cruel, malicious treatment of children under the Trump administration was one of the big unifying things that got a lot of people fired up and involved in politics. So we should be able to expect more, but mistreatment continues. And so our indignation about the mistreatment must continue as well. And I want to give credit to a couple of federal employees with a whistleblower complaint about some of what's going on in one facility that's housed thousands of migrant children. So we're gonna give you the details. It is rough. So contractors in charge of migrant children housed at a facility in Fort Bliss, Texas, were trained to assist with disaster recovery, but had few Spanish skills and little ability to care for minors, according to this whistleblower complaint. So kind of seems like the sort of things that you would want to have if you're going to be dealing with kids who have just been through an incredibly traumatic experience, don't know America, don't necessarily speak English, and are now being held in horrible conditions. But that's not the direction we went in. The complaint describes a chaotic situation for the nearly 5,000 children housed in tents at the facility back in May, with federal employees from across the bureaucracy there for a few weeks at a time, with wholly unsuitable contract staff, and who were, quote, not permitted to interact with the children unless a child specifically approached them. So that's a complex one, bit of a mixed bag. With the history of physical and sexual abuse at these facilities, I understand wanting to have some safeguards against some of the monsters that work at these places. On the other hand, some of these are incredibly young children who have just been through horrendous conditions and now are not even being talked to when they're still suffering and might need help in a variety of forms, which we're gonna turn to in just a moment. So we have a lot more details, including some really horrific treatment of these kids. But Sabrina, what do you think so far of what was happening? Again, not under Trump. This is a couple of months into Biden being president.
No, absolutely. I don't think a lot of people who are, maybe more progressive people, I don't think that they're all that surprised by this. It didn't seem that like Biden and Kamala were going to put that much effort into this, even though it's a huge cause. A lot of people are really concerned about. I do know that once that like the families, because some of the kids do come here, alone. What they are doing now is so they won't have them like in the cages like they've had them in the last 4 years. They are transferring them to like these different facilities, but they're just so unprepared. They don't have enough supplies. They don't have enough like social workers for these children, even though a lot of these children do have families in the country that they could potentially be connected with. But an issue is it takes a long time because there are not enough workers, and some family members, if they could collect the children, they would, but maybe those family members are also undocumented. And the way that it's been going the last few years, it's like, are you gonna risk getting this child and getting you both deported again, or just stay quiet? So it's been a real struggle, and they've been mass hiring at these facilities. One just opened up in Pomona, California recently, and they have about 1,500 kids there, but wow. It's like they are hiring for Christmas at Forever 21. They are holding events at local hotels, and all you need to do to work at these facilities with these traumatized children is childcare experience and be bilingual. And that is it. Starting pay is like $24 an hour, which sounds nice, but these kids need a lot more help and attention than they're getting right now.
Yeah. Well, so thank you for letting us know about that. I didn't know that. That's very useful information, and also seems like higher standards than they have at Fort Bliss. That they expect you to have childcare experience and be able to at least marginally speak the language is more than we apparently were getting in one of these even larger facilities, where kids are being housed in tents. So let's jump into some more of the details and give you an idea of what's going on there. So according to the Government Accountability Project, based on the whistleblower accounts, many contract workers seem to view their job more as crowd control than youth care, while some individuals plainly meant well. And I don't doubt that, by the way. I can be really harsh on some of these, and some of them are absolute monsters. I don't doubt that some of these people want to be helpful. Anyway, carrying on. Other contract workers exhibited impatience with children and were plainly unsure of how to supervise them. Speaking of the company that was contracted for this, they said youth care is not in its portfolio. Okay, so with that, I can be mad at that company. I can potentially be mad at some of the employees there. but I can also be mad at the Biden administration for giving them the contract if that is not in their portfolio. I understand that there was a surge of kids and that you do need to hire. I have a feeling that you can and definitely have the obligation to do better. You can't simply bring on literally anyone, not into an area to do a job where there is a long documented and recent history of horrific mistreatment, of rapidly spreading COVID, of sexual assaults, of blackmail with threats to deport generally non-children, but God only knows. So no, you have to expect better of that. But let's give you some more of the specific details. The complaint details how stacks of bunk beds made it difficult to keep a line of sight on all children, many of whom were visibly distressed. The Servpro, that's one of the companies involved in the contracting, also used loud music to wake the children each day, with some bunks just 10 feet from giant speakers. So I don't think that it requires like a master's degree in child care or child psychology to say that that's not what you're supposed to be doing. That sounds like what you would do as a mild form of torture on individuals to mess them up, to get them to comply with you, which is likely exactly the way that it was rolled out here. Any other thoughts, Sabrina, so far? We do have some more details, but this is some rough stuff.
Oh my gosh, that's so dark. That's psychological warfare that they're committing on these poor children. It's like, really, you can't even do an alarm clock. These kids already have it as rough as it is. It breaks my heart. And you're right that there are good meaning people who do go into this and who care, but like they have to follow certain protocol. And I feel like some of the people who are organizing this, who decide on the rules that maybe some of these like managers or the youth care workers have to follow, they are out of touch.
Yeah.
And they don't know what's actually good for the children, at least on a day-to-day basis. So yeah. I'm extremely concerned.
Yeah, they, by the way, someone in the audience, Cornerstone Boxing Promotion says, doesn't Servpro do water and fire damage restoration? Yeah, that's their portfolio actually. Now they say it was subcontracted, it had nothing to do with us. Well, if you're subcontracting, it very much does have something to do with you, but maybe stick to the fire damage restorations. In any event, let's give you a few more details. So the complaint says the contractors on site repeatedly fought attempts to help children at the facility access medical care. One of the whistleblowers said she had to push for medical care for a child who was having a panic attack, and another girl who had not had her period for months but was now bleeding profusely. I don't know about this specific incident, but I am not shocked to find out that private contractors, these private companies, are not giving kids access to health care because that is expensive, and they are in this to make money, and they want to avoid having to spend more money. The children were housed in tents for as long as 2 months or more. It appeared their bedding was never washed. Many beds were visibly dirty. The children also reported having insufficient clean underwear and socks, which in turn made them reluctant to exercise, obviously. Their day was largely unstructured. During the day, they were typically either sitting or lying in their beds or milling around with relatively few activities available to them, because literally any of that, the lowest bar of caring about these kids' welfare would require the expenditure of a bit of money. And they're not in this for kids' welfare. They're in this to make money off of the kids, whether it psychologically damages them, whether they get sick, whether they have lasting trauma, physical or otherwise. That is the danger when you get private companies involved in this and you don't exercise oversight, whether that's Servpro or whether that's the Biden administration itself. And so all of this is just so disgusting. And we're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna put out this video, and I guarantee people are gonna be less invested in it than they were when we did similar content a couple of years ago, back in 2018, when I almost swore, when a similar situation was happening. Any final thoughts?
These conditions are so inhumane. If CPS got a hold of a household that was even doing a small fraction of this, those kids would have been taken away. And so the fact that these are like government facilities that are allowing this to happen is just disgusting. They need more help than this.
It is, and by the way, I think this was something that was brought up in our production meeting this morning, but Mini Morpho on Twitch says, where are all the people saying save the children? It's weird. They never actually seem to care about real children. Hypothetical, conspiratorial children, they definitely care about them. Actual children being abused, nobody cares.
Yeah, they're not pro-life, they're pro-birth. But I think we all knew that here.
Exactly.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.